Today we have with us Dr. Sheenu Jhawar, a distinguished figure at the intersection of healthcare and entrepreneurship. She is a PhD in maternal mental health and renowned TEDx speaker. Dr. Jhawar is also the director of Apex Hospitals and spearheads a chain of super specialty hospitals across Rajasthan, bringing top-tier medical care to communities across the region. Beyond her impactful work in healthcare, Dr. Jhawar is the president of TiE Rajasthan, where she leads initiatives dedicated to empowering women entrepreneurs globally. Her commitment to fostering female leadership extends to her role as the founder of India's first clinical governance consulting firm, ACE Vision. With a rich professional journey spanning across the NHS in the UK to projects supported by the World Bank in Rajasthan, Dr. Jhawar's expertise resonates on a global scale. Her accolades include global recognition as the best chapter champion for TiE, underscoring her unwavering dedication to driving positive change. Join us as we talk about the remarkable journey and insights of Dr. Sheenu Jhawar towards shaping the future of healthcare and entrepreneurship. Dr. Sheenu, welcome to TICE.
Thank you so much. That is lovely. Thank you. Very warm welcome.
So, to begin with the interview, Dr. Sheenu, please tell us about you, Dr. Sheenu Jhawar as a person, and Dr. Sheenu Jhawar as a mental health expert.
Thank you very much. I love this opportunity to interact with the people at large. I think I'm fundamentally a people's person, and the digital media today has become a very, very nice way to interact with a lot of people outside of your comfort zone. So who am I as a person? I think I am an amalgamation of both a student and a teacher as a person. I have this huge quest for knowing more and more about things which probably I'm not even working on with right now, because that makes me feel if I do not know something, if I want to learn things only about things that I'm working on right now, it makes me move on a very straight path of knowledge. But if I'm trying to amass knowledge about different dimensions, then those dimensions become a part of what I'm doing, and that extends into my professional workspace. So at heart, I'm really a student, and I would also say a facilitator, teacher. I love and teacher not just as in classroom teaching, but I just love to, when I work with my teams, it's not just about instructions and towards their roles and responsibilities. It's more about empowering them with logics and rationale so that they become leaders unto their own right. And also when people around me start working as leaders is the only way for me to extend my persona into different spaces and move on from what I'm currently doing. So who am I? I think I'm a student trying to be a teacher at some time.
So, Dr. Sheenu, you are a leading voice in maternal mental health. And as a renowned expert and TEDx speaker in maternal mental health, I just want to know that what sparked your passion for this field in the first place, and how did it shape your career path?
So I would split this into two parts. The first part is doing a PhD, and the second part is why maternal mental health. So while PhD was not taking me forward in my professional practice because I'm not in the academics, I'm working as in business. I run a business. But I very strongly felt that doing a PhD was sort of a culmination of higher academics. And like I said, I've always had a quest for learning. And to me, doing a PhD was sort of attaining the higher goal of taking the academics to its sort of crescendo. So which is why I was very keen on doing a PhD. When I got a chance of doing a part-time PhD, I went all for it because I could not do a full-time. Like I said, it's not really part of my career progression path. But when I had to pick up a topic from the recesses of my mind, the topic that came forth was maternal mental health. And why, like you asked. So when I was working in the NHS almost 2 decades back, and we're talking 2 decades back, so this is a concept that we know of now, we heard about it now, but at that time, this was unheard of. I went from the Indian healthcare industry to the British healthcare industry. So there was a long gap that I covered, not in terms of 2 countries, but in terms of what was actually happening in the awareness of the community towards different diseases. So when I was working there as a clinical auditor, I came across this term. I came across how people are addressing this as a treatment. So for me, it was first of all a culture shock, because I could not imagine that a woman is giving birth is going to be depressed. And one of the reasons could be from the phenomena of giving birth. So these two things were just not gelling in my mind. So while I was doing my professional work, I also tried to research on it, right? And that's when I came to know that this term, or depression during pregnancy and depression after pregnancy, is an accepted medical issue in the Western country, but it's not even understood, accepted, or acknowledged by the medical fraternity back in some pockets of India. And that to me was a much, much, much bigger shock. See, I am not a clinician, but I did not expect the clinicians to not know about it. And we are talking about taking this to the communities. So you can imagine what a huge gap this was 20 years before. So when I got a chance to do my PhD, somehow I felt this was the one area that I wanted to work on. Because the purpose of research is not just to fulfill a personal quest for knowledge of a particular niche field, but it is also to create knowledge within the local community so that other researchers in the future can pick up from this as a baseline and take the research forward. So that is how the whole thing happened, and I focused myself totally on it.
So, Dr. Sheenu, you like you said that maternal mental health is still one of the topics which is not spoken about in India. Still not many people acknowledge that there can be any mental issue or any kind of depression that the women are going through while giving birth to the child. And you started that initiative 20 years ago when you started working towards it, when you when you decided that you are going to do a PhD in this. So how do you see the situation changing in the last 20 years? Is there any difference in the awareness of the people? Like, are there any, have they started acknowledging this, recognizing this problem as a problem?
So I'll just make a small correction here. The understanding in the Western world, which I came across, was 20 years ago, but I did my PhD fairly recently around COVID times. So from what I saw, from what I've seen now is that there's still some level of awareness of postnatal depression. Sometimes we'll call it the baby blues, and sometimes so there are 3 different stages. I'm not going to go into the scientific details of that, but there's a lot of study and research which is still done on postnatal depression, postnatal mental health, which is after delivering the baby. But there's still very little knowledge, awareness, and research on antenatal depression or mental health, which is while you're still pregnant and if you're depressed. So understanding these symptoms then are confusing. Giving a treatment then is even more difficult because you're carrying a baby. So you can't really be, you can't really be treated completely with medication. So the awareness, there's still a lot of gap. But the one good change which has happened is a lot of people have begun to talk about it. So the normalization part of mental health, that step has now been taken as compared to 20 years before. That's a positive change.
But there is still a very long way to go for people in India to recognize this problem and work towards that. So, Dr. Sheenu, if we talk about ACE Vision, this is a very impressive initiative and founding India's first clinical governance consulting firm. What actually motivated you to create this company, and how do you see it impacting the healthcare landscape in India? But how do you want to work with this?
So that's a great question. I mean, again, a lot of things happened when we were in the NHS. I think travel and, things around you are really the biggest teacher. And if you want to learn, you can learn from just observation alone. When I was working there again, we realized that a lot of different stuff is happening there, which is still yet to come to India. One of the things that we saw was that healthcare, bigger chains are coming into healthcare. And in India, we still had standalone hospitals. And we realized this sort of consolidation is going to come into India a few years down the line, few decades down the line. So what happens when there is a lot of units of healthcare being run by a single entity, just like a manufacturing unit or a large factory with several units across various territories? When you're situated in one place, you're practically in control. And you realize that there is a bit of governance, but that governance sometimes does not take a very proper structure But when you are working from across different territories and across different units, and you have a large number of people working in that organization, and also if you're dealing with the life and death of people, then there has to be some level of governance, not just on the business side of things, because, there's a core and there's a corporate structure, and then you have the units in the periphery. I'm talking about the different hospitals and from healthcare, right? But you also have to have clinical governance. So as an entity, as a single entity, if you say we do, for example, laparoscopic surgeries very well, so that just can't happen with one doctor in one place. It has to happen across your, let's say, 10 units, 10 different hospitals with, I'd say, 25 different doctors. And all of these doctors that are working on laparoscopic surgery in different places, there has to be standardization of the patient outcomes. There has to be standardization of the journey or the process of delivering care. And that entire gamut falls under clinical governance. This is what I understood when I was working in the NHS. So when we decided to come back to India, not just to expand our hospital, which was still a 50-bed hospital at that time, we also realized this will not come in handy in our unit alone as we plan to expand. But this knowledge is not something which we can simply contain to what we are doing. This knowledge is something that we can take out to all the other healthcare facilities across the country. And from there, the idea of setting up the clinical governance company was formed. And I'll just extend this answer a little bit more into, I was very lucky because at that time when I went to a lot of hospitals, I traveled to the tier 1 cities, tier 2 cities. The uptake of clinical governance and clinical audit was sort of being questioned, obviously, because this was the first time a lot of these people, not all, but a lot of these people were hearing about it. And when you talk about clinical governance, you're entering the domain of clinical expertise. But you're not saying that I'm going to tell you what to do. All you're saying is that I'll ensure that whatever is happening everywhere is happening right the way you want it to happen. But when the Quality Council of India came up with the NABH standards, clinical audit and clinical governance was a very big part of that format. And we moved back to India in 2004. I think 2005, 2006, Quality Council of India set up the NABH board on the accreditation standards. So the timing was just right. And then this really took off. So a lot of hospitals that wanted to get their NABH accreditation sorted also partook of the clinical governance work. So it worked.
Timing, when you started the company, it was very apt. Like the Quality Council also decided that they have to go with the clinical governance, and the hospitals also wanted the NABH accreditation. So the timing was very nice.
Yeah.
So, Dr. Sheenu, you are also the president of TiE Rajasthan. So as a president of TiE Rajasthan, you are involved with the TiE Women Global Program also. This program, by as much we know, it sounds amazing. Can you talk about its importance and how it's empowering women entrepreneurs both in Rajasthan and beyond?
Sure. So, the first question that comes to mind the moment we say we're running a program only for women entrepreneurs is why just women entrepreneurs? Because entrepreneur is an entrepreneur, right? But then we're talking of a very niche group of people, perhaps those ones who have the opportunity, the awareness, and all the platforms to gain education, mentorship, and funding. But when we drivel down, we find in tier 2, tier 3, this is skewed. The ratio is skewed. So a lot of women who have a lot of dreams of entrepreneurship are not able to get the right platform for access to mentorship or for funding. And we started this, so we realized this at TiE, and we said, while we are working with schools, school-going children, we're also working with university students, which may be men and women. Can we also give some focus dedicatedly just to the women? So at that time, we partnered with Banastali, partnership in the sense of in Asia, it's the largest university for women only. So he said women that are working in research and science and they're developing products, if they want to commercialize this, can we mentor them and provide them the investor array so that they can also have an access to funding? So that pilot took off very well. Again, I mean, you're in TiE, we're doing all sorts of pilots on how to foster entrepreneurship, and this is one of them. At the same time, the TiE Global Board was also thinking along the same lines. And the very next year, they came up with a very structured entity called TiE Women for all the 61 chapters across 15 countries globally. So we had gained an insight into the local community with the program that we ran. And then we said, now we stop this. And with our learnings, we partner under the TiE global program of TiE Women. And we take our learnings forward and we work with far more universities, also with mid-career women. If they have a dream and they want to set up a business, can they have an access to us, our members? Can we help them? And can we again prepare them for, let's say, 6 to 8 months in terms of mentoring them, and then showcase their ideas to the investors? Even if it's an idea stage, early stage, that's okay, because this was just happening in Rajasthan. So you say we're not looking at a great end-term outcome of them getting funded, but even if there is one success story, it's going to incubate the idea of wanting to take their ideas forward amongst a much larger population of women. And that's how the whole thing started. So kudos to TiE Global for taking the TiE Women program forward. And women across various geographies all over the world are doing so amazingly well. And like I said, even if there is one success story from a local ecosystem, it really goes on for millions to dream that they can do it. And that's the power of success in this entire program.
Undoubtedly, Dr. Sheenu. Like you said, that you worked with the women across the sectors, like the women from the universities, also middle-aged women, also in the schools also, and also the women who have ideas, but they would have never dreamt of even making the plan of doing any business. So what were the challenges you faced while dealing with such women, or convincing them that you have an idea and you can go for it? You can have your startup, you can have your business, you can go for it. What were the challenges in changing the mindset there?
So again, this is like, I would say we worked passively because since we volunteer our time on TiE, so we really have to make a choice of the time that we give to TiE, what is the kind of impact we want out of it. So I would say we do not focus on convincing people, but if there are people who want to do something, we handhold them to take them a little bit forward. But when you asked a great question, and we worked on this passively. So what we did was that in the initial years, with the power of the digital platforms that we have, we brought a lot of amazing, successful women entrepreneurs from across the globe on the platforms, digital platforms, to speak to the women and men alike from almost all universities in Rajasthan. So what happens is when you hear what you see is a success, but what you do not know is what the women entrepreneurs, where they started from and the challenges they faced, whether they had self-doubts and how they overcame them. So hearing these stories, I think initially made the women feel that they can do it. And that is how they came forward. And once they came forward, then we began our part in hand-holding them and taking them towards next level. So this is basically what we did.
Dr. Sheenu, once you listen to the other person's story, you can relate to that and you can find the way forward. So,
yeah.
So coming to our next question, Dr. Sheenu, can you share how the TiE Women Global Program has evolved over the years and the impact it has had on the women entrepreneurs locally as well as globally?
It has had an amazing impact. The applications are growing year on year from tier 3, tier 4 cities also, because we do that kind of a data analysis as well. Globally, that has grown. The interest of the investor community into the business plans made by the applicants of this has grown. Funding has come in. What also happens is that once an applicant is pitching at the global level, the entire global community is listening to it and is taking notice. Mm-hmm. Beyond funding, what a startup really requires is the go-to-market funnel. And that is the biggest advantage of this program, because you're out there and there's the entire community from across different geographies also. And you do not know where your next go-to-market funnel is going to come from, or what collaborations will exist between the other participants who may be working on a product for which you do not need to do backward integration, but you can just simply partner and collaborate with them. So intercollaboration, opening up your horizons, and having a very large audience hear you out and provide you with a possible go-to-market funnel year on year with a community growing. I think this has created a tremendous impact under this program.
So if I ask you that, what is one of the differentiating factors of TiE Women Global Program from any other similar entrepreneurial programs which are already being executed by other organizations?
So I'm going to answer this question in two parts. The first answer is going to be, we do not want to differentiate. We want to add. So in addition to what everybody else is doing, TiE Women or TiE Global also wants to add to it by its own efforts. So I think the ecosystem gets bigger in terms of the offerings that can be given to women, aspiring women, and what they can get from here. Additionally, I think the one fact that TiE overall provides to the ecosystem is that it's layered in a structure. So there's a local ecosystem, which is maybe in Rajasthan, and then there is all the TiE chapters within India, and then all the TiE chapters within the world. So I think that funnel is created from going local to global, which is a beauty of TiE. But other than that, I would very strongly say we're not trying to compete. We're not trying to differentiate. We're simply trying to add to the ecosystem.
So that's a great thought, Dr. Sheenu. So if I ask you that, do you remember any or one of the success stories from the previous cohorts of the TiE Women Global Program? Any one story which you still remember, like this is very inspiring or very motivating?
So a lot of them really, and we've recently gotten this out into the digital media also, and I hope one of the print media will also be covering this. We've had a total of 23 amazing stories, and out of which I think 30% are from women-led founders. But the most recent one, not in any order, but the most recent one is Dr. Kanika Singh Roha she was incubated at IIT Jodhpur, and she was part of our last cohort TiE Women program. And she's working on a biomedical project, which is an absolutely amazing project with a lot of social impact also. And her company is Selvers. And she last pitched in Singapore, and she's a favorite of the investor community, and she's doing exceedingly well. That is just one name out of the many that are doing so well.
Okay. So coming to our last question, Dr. Sheenu, what are you looking forward to this year? Like, what are your future aspirations for the future of this initiative and its role in fostering female entrepreneurship?
I hope that this cohort grows, and I hope that with our current member base, we're still able to mentor all of them, because we do not want to select people and then not give time to them. That is, so we have to look at our bandwidth and what we can do. But other than that, I would say when we first started, it was still, it was a starting point, and it was a journey of transformation. We were very aware that this is a long innings. We're not going to get very clear-cut outcomes within the first 2 years. That was never the plan. But my biggest happiness in this is that with this transformative journey, year on year, I'm seeing the quality of these startups from the women, the number of women, and whether it's fintech or health tech or wearable devices and manufacturing and architecture, it's just aerospace, you name it, and the women are there with a business model and a business plan. And the way this is going forward, I think it's a real pleasure to see this coming from Rajasthan. So I think as far as the future plans are concerned, we would continue to foster entrepreneurship. And I think my end-term goal, if I can say it, would be to scrap the TiE Women program, where it is so, the opportunity becomes so equal that we do not necessarily have to focus on women, but they're just part of the whole cohort. And whether it's men or women, the availability of the opportunity is equal for everyone. I hope. I mean, that is the end goal, really.
That's very nice. And all the best to you for your future endeavors, Dr. Sheenu. Thank you so much for talking to you. Great experience talking to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.